My name is David Maialetti. I've been a photojournalist for roughly 30 years. Being a photojournalist in Philadelphia, I feel very lucky and fortunate. Philadelphia has always been, for me, a place that I hold dearly in my heart. The best part of Philadelphia, for me, is just the characters that you come across, the characters that you meet. There's just so much Philadelphians have to offer, and I'm very lucky to be able to kind of document that on a regular basis. 2023 had so many, I think, big, just kind of stories that we never had a break. We never slowed down. You know, some of the big things of, the Eagles Super Bowl, the Phillies run in the playoffs, Cavalcante, the escapee from Chester County. Those are like kind of the three things that kind of pop into my mind as like big stories for, from the year. The photo that we're looking at is from the escapee, the Chester County prison escapee, Danilo Cavalcante. The whole story was fascinating. From beginning to end, there were so many odd moments in this. The video of him shimmying up the wall to get out of the prison, the alleged flicking the lights on and off in this person's house, like just so bizarre. The day this picture was made, I was at the gym and sneaking in a workout before work. I saw breaking news on the television at the gym, and I knew right away. I was like, oh, they caught him. They were holding him in Avondale at the state police barracks. Not in this photo that you don't see, where about 100 and some people that showed up at the police barracks. There were media, from New York that came down, from Brazil, but just people that were curious. There were even people like TikTokers that were just trying to like make a picture or a video of him coming out. So it was like, not only were we competing against other photographers and television, it was just the general public who were all, trying to get a view of him. They had this massive Bearcat vehicle that was like super armored, like something like out of, I don't know, Die Hard or some, crazy scene. And that's what they were going to transport him in. And the one thing that was really odd, that when he came out, I noticed right away when he stepped out that he had no shoes on. I've never seen that before in when they were bringing someone out. He was let out by, probably a dozen officers and put in this like very heavily armored vehicle, and that's the last we saw him. He was transported out to a different prison. This is a picture from the Broad Street Run. It's a race I've covered I don't know how many times since I've been at the Inquirer. I love it. It's like so Philadelphia. I love where it starts and how it moves through Center City and into South Philadelphia. This picture is probably a couple hundred yards from the start, and it rained, I think, all the night before and into the morning. And the runners, you could see some of them have raincoats on or what do you call it, ponchos. And I noticed the street was wet in certain spots. There were these large puddles formed. And I noticed I could see the runners as they were reflected in this puddle. In this case, I was able to find an angle that kind of worked. So it was great because when the runners came through, there were just waves and waves of runners. And I was trying to kind of wait for the right group to come by, because sometimes the spacing didn't look so good. And when the person with the red poncho came into the frame, it just felt like it kind of said what was the day like for these runners. Patience is so important in photojournalism. I always like to tell students, classes that I talk to, or young photographers, it's like the best photos start by seeing the background, then the middle ground, and then the foreground, and letting everything come into that space. You're composing that scene and waiting for something great to happen in that space. That's the strength of what a good photojournalist can do. Being as patient as you can in a very fast-paced occupation is a huge challenge. There's a lot of pressure. There's a lot of pressure to make the right photograph. There's a lot of pressure to get that photograph to our editors to get it online as quickly as possible, to meet deadlines. So all that is going through your mind when you're trying to make the picture. And I think when it happens, you get this, at least for me, I feel like there's this moment where everything goes away. Everything that's happening except for what's right in front of you. And when you get to see that with no distractions, that's pure heaven. It's pure, like it is like the happiest I think a photographer can be in that moment, is when it all comes together like that and you're ready to make the photo.